A Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder, Chapter 12, Part 2. When the ribs came, they were tender and juicy, slathered with a sauce that reminded Hannah of aromatic wood smoke and sweet, wine-ripened tomatoes. As they ate, occasionally wiping their hands on the wet napkins the waitress had provided, Hannah thought about the best way to identify the bouncer who had fought with Ron. If she asked the management, they'd be paranoid about possible lawsuits. She had to think of some non-threatening excuse to convince them that she needed the bouncer's name. By the time they'd wiped their hands the final time and shared an excellent cranberry cobbler, Hannah knew exactly how to proceed. She paid their tab, got Lisa settled in front of a quarter slot machine with the change from the cookie jar, and set out to find the manager. After being referred to several employees, Hannah finally found a security guard who agreed to escort her to the manager's office. The guard was tall, broad-shouldered, and perfectly impassive as he blocked a lighted security panel with his body and punched numbers on a keypad that opened the door to an inside corridor. Hannah gave him a friendly smile as he motioned her through the door, but he didn't smile back. It was obvious that a stern demeanor topped the list of requirements for casino security guards. Once she'd arrived at the proper door, the guard knocked twice and then opened it. "A Miss Swenson to see you. She says it's personal." A voice from the interior told Hannah to enter, and she stepped into the office. The room was large and beautifully decorated. 3 walls were ivory, and the 4th was painted an attractive shade of Chinese red. It contained an ivory silk-covered sofa and 2 matching chairs that flanked a black lacquer coffee table with gold inlaid dragons. The decor was an odd choice for an Indian casino, and Hannah was surprised. There wasn't a single Native American blanket or artifact in sight. An older man with carefully styled grey hair rose from his chair behind a black lacquered desk. "Miss Swenson, I'm Paul Littletree, the casino manager. Won't you sit down?" "Thank you," Hannah replied and took the chair in front of his desk, a lovely armchair upholstered in Chinese red silk. "You can leave us, Dennis." Paul Littletree waved a dismissal to the security guard. Hannah waited until the door had closed behind the security guard, and then she launched into the speech she'd prepared. "This is really embarrassing, Mr. Littletree. I'm afraid my brother got a little out of hand the last time he was here. My parents sent me to apologize and offer to pay for any damage that he did." "When was this?" "On Tuesday night. When he got home, he told my mother that he'd been in a fight with one of your bouncers." Hannah lowered her eyes and attempted to look embarrassed about her mythical brother's actions. "We think it's that new girlfriend of his. She's involved in some kind of anti-gambling movement, and she talked him into driving out here to pass out some brochures. My brother just has some scratches and bruises, but my parents asked me to check to make sure that your bouncer's all right." "That would be Alfred Redbird. I noticed that he had some bruises and a black eye when he came in from the parking lot." "I'm so sorry." Hannah sighed deeply. "Of course, we'll be glad to pay his medical expenses and make up for any time he lost from work." "That's very generous, but it's not necessary. Alfred didn't need more than a couple of band-aids." "I'm so glad to hear that. My mother's been worried sick about it. Was Mr. Redbird able to finish his shift on Tuesday night?" "No." Paul Littletree chuckled. "But that had nothing to do with your brother. His wife called at midnight, and Alfred left to take her to the hospital. Their first baby was born at 8 the next morning." Hannah smiled, even though she felt more like frowning. The bouncer was sounding less and less like a viable suspect. "I'd still like to apologize to him personally. Is he working tonight?" "No, I gave him the rest of the week off with pay. He'll be back on Monday, and he should be used to being a new father by then. Relax, Miss Swenson. Your brother didn't do any real damage, but I'm afraid we'll have to ban him from the casino for a while." "I certainly can't blame you for that. You have a very nice place here, Mr. Littletree. My friend and I just finished having the ribs at your restaurant and they were delicious. I'm glad you're enjoying your evening with us. Poor little tree rose from his chair and Hannah knew her interview was over. Tell your parents that we appreciate their concern and come out to see us again soon. When Hannah emerged from the office, the security guard was waiting for her. He wore the same unsmiling visage as he escorted her back into the main part of the casino, and Hannah fought the urge to do something to rattle his composure. If he ever decided to move to England, he'd be a shoo-in to replace one of the guards at Buckingham Palace. Lisa was right where Hannah had left her, sitting in front of the same slot machine. There was a pile of quarters in the tray and Hannah was surprised. Are you winning, Lisa? I think I'm a couple of dollars ahead. Lisa glanced down at her tray. Why don't you try it? It's really a lot of fun. All right, but only for a few minutes. I want to get back before 9. Just let me get some change. Take some of these. Lisa scooped some quarters out of the tray and handed them to her. Maybe they'll bring you luck. The machine next to Lisa was empty, and Hannah sat down. Her last suspect had been eliminated. If the bouncer had been at the hospital with his wife, there was no way he could have shot Ron. As Hannah pulled the handle and lost her first quarter, she wondered what people found so fascinating about slot machines. They weren't really interactive, but the man across the aisle from her was patting his machine with his left hand while he pulled the handle with his right. It must be superstitious behavior, Hannah decided, and as she glanced at the people around her, she realized that every one of them was doing something to try to change their luck. The lady in the red dress talked to her machine, murmuring endearments as the reels spun around. The older man in the polo shirt held down the handle until the reels stopped moving, and then he released it to fly back with a jerk. The young brunette in the pink sweater was cupping her left hand in the coin tray as if she would will the coins to fall. Hannah was amused as she turned back to her machine. Everything was mechanized. Then didn't they realize that nothing they could do would change the outcome? Prompted by the thought that the sooner they left, the sooner she could get home to Moish and a comfortable bed, Hannah noticed that it was possible to drop the 5 quarters into the coin slot before she pulled the handle. That was nice. She'd get rid of her money 5 times faster that way. Hannah concentrated on dropping in multiple coins, pulling the handle and waiting to drop in more. Isn't this fun, Hannah? Lisa turned to grin at her, and Hannah put on an answering smile. Some fun. As far as she could see, the only benefit that might come from playing the slots was a possible strengthening of the muscles in the right arm. Hannah dropped in her last 5 quarters. One more pull of the handle and she'd be finished. She yanked down the lever and turned to Lisa to ask her if she was ready to leave when a siren wailed, red lights flashed, and quarters began to spew out of her machine. You hit a jackpot! Lisa jumped up from her chair and rushed over to watch the hailstorm of coins bouncing down. How many quarters did you put in? Hannah just stared at the avalanche of coins clanking noisily into the metal tray. As many as it could take. I just wanted to finish so that we could go home. You did it, Hannah! Lisa's mouth dropped open as she looked up at the flashing numbers above the machine. You just won $1,945. Hannah stared at the flashing numbers with absolute amazement. Then she looked down at the reels and saw that they were all lined up on the jackpot icons. No wonder people liked to play the slot machines. It was a lot more fun than she thought.